Hi, I'm Kristen Veltmeyer and welcome to my first YouTube channel presentation. I'm the education consultant here at My Matters at Markoola on the Sunshine Coast, Australia. This video will be on the 4 movements of special education over the years. I hope it gives you some insight into what you and your loved ones experience with regards to the schooling system. While Autistic Spectrum Conditions, herein referred to as ASC, might come from within the student, many researchers argue that the social construction and popular viewpoints of disability are also of serious importance. Obviously, it has to be acknowledged that there are exceptional educators and professionals in the world. Despite the education movements they taught in, they were understanding, caring, and went beyond the call of duty to accommodate those with disabilities. Therefore, this video will be analysing the popular, general, and dominant viewpoints of the time. Special education over the last century has gone through many changes due to increases in knowledge and reflecting on teaching practice. There have been 4 major movements in special education. These are ignoring, segregating, integrating, and inclusion. For this video, I interviewed a man named Damien Santamoro to give a real-life account of his education experience. Damien is 22 and completing a PhD in autism at the University of Queensland. He also tutors psychology classes there. Damien's Asperger's was diagnosed at a young age and he attended a specialist primary school for children with autism. With the skills he learnt there, he was able to transition to a high school and spend time in both mainstream classrooms and in the special education I feel Damien's unit. insights are excellent in giving evidence to the education research provided. So first, let's talk about movement 1, or ignoring. Ignoring can also be referred to as the medical model. In the ignoring movement, medical professionals and educators put the disability and the responsibility for failure as being located within the student, or alternately, as a result of bad parenting. Even parents today shudder when they hear the term refrigerator mother. This term was used by doctors to inform the mother that her child was autistic because she simply hadn't loved or bonded with them enough. I would like to share with you a beautiful quote from Donovan and Zucker. They assert that when professionals shift the blame, they effectively dissociate from the individual, regarding them as tragically broken persons, and hope we are humane enough to shoulder the burden of meeting their basic needs. This is a view that sees the disabled in general as wards of the community, morally and perhaps legally. In the past, it has been claimed that the problem of these disabled adults has been solved by warehousing them for life, literally in wards. While it is true that students with disabilities do differ from their peers, there are also barriers to their success in the form of assumptions and stereotypes of their abilities and future success. Fear and a lack of education for peers, teachers, and parents can result in stigma and discomfort in dealing with these students. When professionals and teachers tell children the problem is within them and that they simply have to try harder, it can lead to damaging results. Many of the older school administrators in today's schools were peers of those students with ASC being diagnosed during this ignoring era. They would have seen the way they were labelled and not welcome to learn with everybody else. Therefore, it would be challenging for them to plan and facilitate today's concept of teaching all children in the same classroom. Through this lens, it is much easier to understand their fear and dismissal of something they do not have experience in. When Damien Santamoro was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome at age 5, the paediatrician told his mother that Damien would never marry or leave home. Today, his academic success has proven this prediction and attitude to be incorrect. Many of today's schools want to be competitive in the marketplace and achieve top results through assessments like NAPLAN and MySchool. These results are now made public and can affect parental choice of school. This can create problems with special needs students being refused enrolment or asked to stay home when these assessments occur. This is not all students being given equal opportunity. Therefore, unfortunately, while special education has improved immensely over the years, in today's society, schools are once again in danger of returning to this sort of ignoring attitude. Movement 2 is segregation. Segregating, or institutionalization, marked the first instance in which the responsibility for social failure was not placed solely within the student with ASC, as indicated in the ignoring trend. Segregation came with the development of special schools in the late 1900s. Segregation involves 2 steps. Firstly, students were categorized by disabilities or deficits. Secondly, remedial teaching was designed to make them normal, like other students. Once again, the disability was found to a certain extent to be within the student, and they were encouraged to assimilate or to be like others. In Damien's case, that explicit, focused intervention for ASC did result in positive outcomes in his later years. He said, "During my primary years in the special school, I was taught many social and emotional identification skills. Due to this, I felt the transition to high school was quite pleasant, or at least not very stressful." However, segregative treatment, designed to cure and make the student with a disability like everybody else, doesn't always result in personal happiness. Damien himself obsessively studied the way that others interacted in social settings, determined to make himself normal. When he finally achieved all the goals on his checklist, he was shocked to discover that although having a large number of friends and behaving like everybody else, it did not make him happy. Through that experience, he came to a new awareness that he could learn the social skills he needed while still valuing the things that set him apart. This experience supports the argument that the segregation movement is still far from the inclusive education theories being advocated today, and when used as a dominant movement, is not effective in promoting future life success for students with disabilities. The third movement in this video is integration. As we got closer to the millennium in 2000, special education grew to include students where no pathology, disorder, disability, or impairment could be shown to exist. Special education therefore grew to meet the needs of a general education system. It was required to accommodate a diverse range of sometimes challenging students. The needs outlined above were used to link special education support units, or SEUs, to individual mainstream schools. Integration saw a move towards a more socially just environment, with more disabled students being included at least part-time in mainstream classes. Today, most mainstream schools have a special education or learning support unit designed to support students with unique needs in integrating with their peers in mainstream classrooms as
Damien
much as
indicates
possible. This was a benefit to him as a student with ASC. He said the following: "My high school, Kelvin Grove State College, had a very good education unit. Also, by this age, I felt I could at least interact somewhat functionally in the classroom, probably from so much work at the special school. The unit was there when I needed special help, but this became less common as I reached the later years of high school. I think this was important. I believe children still need to be exposed to the neurotypical or mainstream world, as in the end, it is their world that they will be living in." Integration is what we are most likely to see in today's classrooms for children with special needs. It would take massive funding and many accommodations required to keep all children, including those with special needs, in the mainstream classroom at all times. In addition, not every child with ASC would benefit from being in the same classroom at all times. In particular, those with oversensitive sensory profiles need regular breaks. Those who struggle with social skills may be very overwhelmed in dealing with big groups in the mainstream classroom. Programs, therefore, need to be flexible and student-centered. The fourth and final movement is inclusion. Inclusion is the latest proposed movement in special education. There is a lot of debate from educational theorists on what true inclusion is and what this will look like in a whole school context. The 2006 UN Convention raises the responsibilities for educational administrators. It requires the following: persons with disabilities are not excluded from education on the basis of disability. Reasonable accommodation of individuals' requirements is provided. Persons with disabilities receive support required within the general education system. And finally, effective individualized support measures are provided that maximize academic and social development consistent with the goal of full inclusion. Inclusion is not just valid from a human rights perspective, as evident in the rules and guidelines of documents like the Salamanca Statement, nor is it just a philosophy. Instead, it is an ideal for all administrators and teachers to strive for. Inclusion is not just valid from a human rights perspective, as evident in the rules and guidelines of documents like the Salamanca Statement, nor is it just a philosophy. Instead, it is an ideal for all administrators and teachers to strive for. Inclusion means combating the aforementioned conflict of interests, resisting the urge for the school to be seen as a marketable business to attract students and achieve well and visible results such as league tables. True inclusion requires the whole school approach is reinforced from an administration level downwards. It also requires ongoing educational research and professional development for all staff. The focus needs to be taken away from forcing assimilation and placed on helping students with ASC to feel accepted and supported. Donovan and Zucker assert that rather than reverting to the ignoring and segregation models of special education, we can interpret autism as but one more wrinkle in the fabric of humanity. Practically speaking, this does not mean pretending that adults with autism do not need help, but it does mean replacing pity towards them with ambition for them. The key to this view is the recognition that they are part of us. Today, teachers and professionals have access to so much more information. Students should now have a much better chance than they did in the past. However, this will only occur when collaborative partnerships are formed with the student, the parent, the teachers, and the school equally involved. I hope you've enjoyed watching, and please subscribe to our channel. See you next week.